Hey everyone, Cody from Mac Telecom Networks. Aruba has sent me two 1960 series switches. This is a part of the Aruba Instant Online where we could do cloud stacking. I did ask the community if they want to see a full Aruba Instant On video or just the switches, and a lot of them wanted to see the full video. I did make a video about a year ago, but I think it's time to do a revisit to the Aruba Instant Online. So for this full video, we'll be using a Netgate 6100 as our firewall, then we'll have the Aruba switches and a Aruba access point. I won't be going into a lot of the firewall details, but I will show you the different VLANs that I've created in the Netgate 6100. If you're new here, please subscribe and hit the bell icon. If you'd like to hire me for network consulting, visit www.mactelecomnetworks.com. You can find me on Twitter at MacTelecomN, and if you'd like to support the channel, I do have affiliate links and I will post those down below. Before we take a closer look at the Aruba 1960 switches, let's take a look at the topology and the networks that we'll be creating. So the networks we'll have are staff, guest, and the cameras, and they'll be sitting on the 10.10.20, 10.10.30, and 10.10.40 with their VLANs, VLAN 20, 30, and 40, all in the third octet. I just find that easier when I'm doing some troubleshooting. At the top, we have our internet ISP connection going down to our Netgate 6100. From the Netgate 6100, there's just one physical cable going to the Aruba 1960 switch. From the top Aruba switch down to the bottom Aruba switch, we're going to have two cables. And these will be in a lag group, but they'll also be our cables for our stacking. I'll have one Aruba Wi-Fi AP22 Wi-Fi 6 access point, and we'll put one camera on here just to see how we tag the port for the cameras. With the Aruba Instant On 1960 switches, we have 5 different models. So we have two 24 port models and we have two 48 port models, which both support PoE or non-PoE. And then we have this 12 port aggregation switch. The two switches that I received to do a video on are two 24 port models with PoE that support both class 4 and class 6 PoE. These access switches come with two RJ45 10 gigabit ports and then another two SFP plus ports for fiber or DAC connections. For the PoE ports on these switches, we could have a total of 370 watts, up to 240 watts with the class 6 PoE, or 370 watts with the class 4 PoE. And these switches offer a lifetime warranty. Now that we've taken a look at the Aruba 1960 switches, let's go ahead and create these networks in pfSense. So in our pfSense, we're just on the dashboard right now. We need to go to interfaces and then go to assignments. From assignments, we're going to want to click on VLANs, and we need to assign some VLANs. So we're going to add. And the parent interface for all of these VLANs will be going down IGC0. If you're using pfSense, yours may be different than this, but all of our VLANs will be going down this. And the first VLAN tag will be 20, and we'll be calling this staff. Now we need to create the other two VLANs, VLAN 30 and VLAN 40, and it will still be going down the parent interface of IGC0. So we'll put VLAN 30 and we'll call this guest. And our last VLAN will be our camera VLAN of VLAN 40. And we'll give it a description of cameras and press save. Now the VLANs are created, we need to do interface assignments. So down at the bottom, we could see available network ports. If we click on the drop down, we could see these new VLANs that we created, VLAN 20, 30, and 40. Let's click on VLAN 20 and then press add. I'm not going to do this for all the other VLANs, just for VLAN 20, but the same steps would apply to 30 and 40. So we can see here VLAN 20 is on op4. Let's click in there. We're going to enable the interface and we're going to give it a name of staff. The IPv4 configuration type will be a static IPv4. We'll scroll down to the static IPv4 configuration and give it its IP address. The IP address for this network will be 10.10.20.1. and it will be a /24. We'll scroll down to the bottom and we'll press save. We're going to apply the changes, and the next step is to enable the DHCP server for this network. Under services, we'll go to DHCP server, and then we'll click under staff. We're going to enable the DHCP server, and then we're going to give it a range. So I'll give it 10.10.20.10 to 200. Now this network still can't reach out to the internet because we need to put some firewall rules in. I'm going to go over to the staff network and we're just going to add one basic rule for this. For more advanced rules, I will do another video on pfSense for, but we're going to add a rule. The action will be to pass, the interface will be staff, the protocol will be any, The source and destination will be any as well, and we'll press save. So this means that this staff network could reach any other network that we create in here. You most likely will want to create rules to block out certain networks from reaching each other. Also within Aruba, we can block network to network traffic through the switches, and I'll show you how to do that. So the next steps, what we need to do, we need to get these switches and the Aruba access point online. Then we'll stack them together and create a lag group. There's two different ways we can manage these switches. We could either do it through the Aruba Instant on Cloud portal, or we could do it through the local management interface. I'm going to do all the configuration through the Instant on portal, but then we will take a look at the local management interface as it has a lot more features built into it. So I've just gone to an IP of one of the Aruba Instant on 1960 switches, and we could see here, for simplicity at its best, download the app on your iPhone or on your Android. So you could do a full setup of Instant on from your phone. I'm not going to do that in this video as it will be a little harder to see all the configuration that we're doing. But for now, we're just going to connect through the Aruba Instant on portal. I already have an account set up. If you don't, you need to sign up for a new account. So we're going to put in my email and my password, and then we'll be into the Aruba Instant on. Now we're in the cloud portal page. We need to set up a new site before we could do anything else. So we'll press continue. We're going to select what we want to adopt into this controller: access point, switch, or access point and switch, which we're going to be doing both. It's telling us all the steps that we need to do. We need to make sure that it's connected to the internet, which it is. We need to make sure it's all plugged into PoE. And we could see here that we have a standby. After a few minutes, your Instant on devices will be ready to discover when the lights are alternating between green and amber, which they are right now. So we should be able to get them into this controller. We need to enter the serial number of one of the switches. And if you want to do this through your phone, there is a pull tab at the front of the switch where you can just scan a QR code to get them into this controller. Now I've entered a serial number for one of the switches. We're going to press search for devices. And we could see that there's two devices found. That's because I have a cable connecting them both together, and we're going to add the devices. Next, it's going to ask us to set up a Wi-Fi network, and we can't skip this. We need to put something in. So I'll call it YouTube test, and we'll do test 1, 2, 3, 4. And we'll press continue. Now it's going to ask us to select our country, which is Canada for me, which is correct, and we'll activate the site. Your site is ready to go. It is now active and your network is being configured. We'll press continue. Now this is the main Aruba Instant on dashboard. We can see our networks here. We have one wired and we have one wireless network. We have our clients, which we don't have any clients on here yet. We have applications, and then we have our inventory. If we click on the inventory, it's going to show us everything that we have currently in the controller. So we have our two switches, and then we have our AP22 wireless access point. And we can see the state that they're all synchronizing. We also have our state duration, and then we have the model numbers of the switches and the access points, as well as clients. Now, before we do the stacking, let's go through some of the points of why we should stack these Aruba Instant on. It says it's simpler. That's their first point. So we're going to stack these switches, and instead of going into two different switches, we could configure it just by the one IP or by the GUI interface of the Aruba Instant on. It says it's more reliable, so if one switch fails, the other switch automatically pick up the work. It's more flexible, so you could buy what you need, and then you could just add in what you need later on. We could stack up to 4 switches together. Before we stack these two switches together, let's look at the topology. So we have our top switch, and then we have an access point that's connecting to it. And we also have our bottom switch connecting to it as well. So if we want to stack these together, we'll go to devices. I'm going to click on the top switch, and then we'll go to actions. From actions, we're going to create a stack. And this is the second device. So this is our bottom device, and we're going to add it. And now the stack is being configured. Please do not turn off or unplug. The stack has been created, so we could either finish or we could give it a name. Let's give it a name. I'm going to call this switch stack 1. And then we'll press save. Now, if we look back at our devices, there's only 2 listed. So we have our access point, and then we have this switch stack 1. And the same goes for if we look at our topology. We just see both of these switches combined and the access point below it. Let's go through some of the settings with this switch stack. We have the switch stack name, and then we have our device, which is our conductor. We could call this top switch. And then we have our backup, and we'll call that bottom switch. You could also see the local network IP of both of the switches. On the right-hand side, we have our power over Ethernet budget. And on the conductor, we're using 5.76 watts, which is for the access point. In the backup, we're not using anything because it's not plugged in. Under connectivity, we could hit this drop down and we could do either the conductor or the backup, and we could either have it automatically get an IP from DHCP, or we could set it static. We also have this routing, so it will allow routing between networks. Under ports, we could see what's connected to these switches. So at the top, we could see that that's connected to the internet. On port 5, that's connected to the AP22. Port 19 is what my computer's on, and then port 25 is what we're using to stack. We have our included networks, so we have our untagged networks, and then we have our tagged networks. We'll have to create a few more networks for our staff, our guest, and then our camera. We could also look at the bottom switch from the screen, and we only have that stack port connected. And then we have our networks, we have our untagged, and we have our tagged networks, and we have our link aggregation, which we don't have configured right now, but we'll get to that in a second. We could take a look at our stack, and under roles, we have our conductor, which is the top switch, and then backup, which is the bottom switch. Under actions, we could do things like locate, network test, restart, or we could unstack the devices. And then under tools, we could do port mirroring on either the conductor or we could do it on the backup. So now let's configure link aggregation. You could see that I have a cable plugged into port 26 and it's showing it's connected to another switch. If we go to our bottom switch, we could see that red out, and that's because of spanning tree protocol. But within the cloud, we can't change any of the STP. So let's go over to link aggregation. I'm going to add link aggregation. We're going to select port 25 and port 26, and we're going to select LACP and press save. Now we're going to go to the top switch, the conductor switch, and we're going to do the same thing. Once these switches synchronize, we should see port 26 on the bottom switch go green, and they'll be a part of a link aggregation group. The switches have now synchronized, and we can see all 4 ports are green on port 25 and port 26 on both the switches. So what we need to do now, we need to create our other networks, so our staff, our guest, and then our camera. Now to create new wired networks and wireless networks, we click on this top tab and then we go to add. The first network type will be a wired network, and this will be our staff network on VLAN 20. We have our network security, which protects us against DHCP and ARP attacks. And then we have network access. So we could have this unrestricted where it can talk to everything, or we could restrict it. And we could allow it to certain IP addresses if we'd like. We also have our network assignment, so we have all of our tagged and our untagged traffic. I'm just going to leave this at default for now and press save. Now we need to add our guest network. It's going to be a wired network with the name of guest, and it will be on VLAN 30, and we'll give it network security as well and press save. The last network that we need to create is the camera network, and that will be on VLAN 40. We'll do the same for the network security and we'll press save. Now these networks still won't work because we need to tag them to our switches. So if we go into our inventory, click on the switch stack, and then go over to ports. This is where we're going to want to tag those networks. So we'll click our staff, guest, and our camera, and we'll press save. Now we need to create our wireless networks. We're just going to create a wireless network for the staff and the guest. We're going to add a new network. It's going to be a wireless network, and we're going to use the usage as guest. The name will be guest. And we're going to have a password on this. We're not going to leave it open, and we're going to do WPA2 or WPA3 personal, and we'll give it a password of test1234. We're not going to have a guest portal for this. And then we have a bunch of different options, so let's run through those quickly. We have our show network, so if we uncheck this, it would hide the SSID, and then we have our Wi-Fi 6, which I have a Wi-Fi 6 AP22. We could turn on this multiple client optimization, so improve channel efficiency when multiple Wi-Fi 6 clients are connected by enabling OFDMA. We'll turn that on. You'd also optimize it for video streaming, and we could limit the bandwidth usage. We then have our IP and network assignment. If we just left this on the default, it would assign them this IP address. We're going to have it as the same as the local network. And the network that we're going to select is our guest network. And then on the right-hand side, we could specify if we want this to be on the 2.4 and the 5 gigahertz, we want that combined, or if we want them to be individual, either on the 2.4 or the 5. We could have a schedule for our Wi-Fi, and then we have network access. And for this network access, it's either unrestricted access or restricted access. We're going to restrict this access as it's our guest network. Under network assignments, we could tell which access point the guest SSID will be on. We could select all devices, or we could pick and choose which one we want it to go to. And then under application, we have a whole bunch of these different categories. So we have social networks, we have shopping, we have productivity, we have malicious and risk. If we don't want them to be able to use that, we just need to uncheck and then save. Now we need to create our staff wireless network. So we'll press add, and then we'll go to wireless networks. The usage this time will be for employees, and we'll give it a name of staff. We'll give it a password of test1234. We'll turn on WPA2 and WPA3 personal. And then under network access, we're going to give it unrestricted so they could go everywhere. And we'll be able to ping different subnets. Then after we do that, we'll go to restricted access, and it should be blocking our traffic. Okay, I'm now connected to my staff network. If we go ipconfig, I'm getting an IP address out of 10.10.20.1, which is my staff network. We should be able to ping the guest gateway as well as our default gateway. So we'll ping 10.10.10.1, and we could see the request going through, and we should be able to do the same thing for the 30 network. So let's go ahead and we'll restrict that. Going back to our network access, let's restrict access and then press save. I'm going to do a consistent ping, and we should see the ping start to drop. So there we go. We could see the pings are dropping. That took about 15 seconds, and we shouldn't be able to ping the default network either, and we can't. So now we're doing that at the switch level instead of at the firewall level. I still do like to do all my rules at the firewall, but this is a nice feature that you could do right from the GUI interface. So now if we want to put a physical switch port into a different network, we need to click into our networks and then select which wired network we want to change. So say we want to put something into the staff network, we need to go to network assignment, and then we need to select the port or the ports that we want to put in the staff network. For this, I'll just put port 7 on the top switch into the staff network. We're going to make it untagged and then press save. Now I'll move my Ethernet cable over to port 7, and we should be getting an IP from the staff network. My computer is now plugged into port 7, and we are getting an IP out of the 20 VLAN, which is our staff network. So the next thing we're going to check out is how to access these switches locally and all the different settings that they have. They do have a bunch of different settings that's not showing in the GUI interface. Let's select the option to use local management. We're going to connect to the local management interface. The default username is admin, and then we press login. Now it's asking us to change our user and our password. I'll just put in Mac Telecom, and then we'll enter a new password and confirm. Okay, so here we could see a bunch of different information. So we have our system information, we have our system time, and then we have the device information. On the bottom, we have our system resource usage, we have a device locator, and then we have a few configuration wizards, so getting started and a VLAN configuration wizard. On the left-hand side, we have our setup network where we could do system time, we could do some user management, DHCP server, schedule configuration, DNS, and stacking configurations. And then we have our switching, which would allow us to do port configuration, SNMP, we have some trunk configurations, and EEE configuration. Now within the local management, we could do different spanning tree options. So we have rapid spanning tree, we have STP, or we have MSTP. We have our VLAN configuration where we could add different VLANs, and then we have power over Ethernet, we have neighbor discovery, we have routing, quality of service, security, diagnostics, and maintenance. So you could just tell in the local interface, there's a lot more than we're seeing in the Aruba Instant on GUI. Now, I'm not going to go over anything more on the local management interface, but if you want to see me do a full build video using the local interface, let me know in the comments below. So let's take a look at the pricings for these 24-port 1960 switches. On the Aruba Amazon webpage, we could see that this 24-port PoE switch is $1,275 USD MSRP. That price point is a little bit high, but if you go into the local management interface, we have a lot more advanced configuration than some of the other brands out there. So for this price, it really isn't too bad. Final thoughts on Aruba Instant On. I think it's pretty straightforward and easy to set up. It's a little more configuration than other brands out there with software-defined networking. If you have any questions about this video, please leave it in the comments below. If you like this video, hit the thumbs up button. If you're new here, please subscribe and hit the bell icon. All right, thanks.